Britain didn't just colonize India, they looted it systematically. For 200 years, the numbers are staggering. Economist UTSA Patnaik calculated Britain drained $45 trillion from India between 1765 and 1938. That's $45 trillion, not through fair trade, through theft disguised as policy. India had 27% of global GDP when Britain arrived. When they left, 3%. What happened to that wealth? It built Britain, funded the Industrial Revolution, created the British Empire, while Indians starved to death in famines, while craftsmen became beggars, while the richest civilization on earth became the poorest. This is the story of the greatest wealth transfer in history, how Britain systematically drained India through taxation, trade manipulation, and deliberate deindustrialization. Stay with me, because what Britain did to India is the blueprint for how empires extract wealth. And it's still happening today. Let's start with what India was before Britain, because the contrast matters. Pre-colonial India 1700, share of world GDP, 27% largest economy with China. Manufacturing, 25% of global manufacturing output. Textiles dominated global market. Indian cotton and silk were most sought-after products worldwide. Shipbuilding, Indian ships were superior to European ships. Europeans bought ships from India. Steel production, India producing Wootz, steel, Damascus, steel, highest quality in world. Living standards, Indian workers earned more than British workers in early 1700s. This wasn't a poor country Britain civilized. This was the world's richest economy Britain plundered. How Britain took control. Battle of Plassey. East India Company defeats Bengal's Nawab through bribery and betrayal. This wasn't military conquest. It was corporate takeover. A company, not a government, conquered Bengal. Company given Diwani rights, right to collect taxes from Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. This is crucial. Company now has taxation power, can extract wealth legally. After Indian Rebellion, Sepoy Mutiny, British Crown takes over from Company. Direct colonial rule begins, but the extraction methods stayed the same. Just under government control now, the extraction begins. Immediately after gaining taxation rights, Company starts draining Bengal. 1765 to 1770. Company extracts £5.7 million from Bengal, equivalent to £1 billion plus today. This money doesn't stay in India. Shipped to Britain. Bengal famine. 10 million people die. 1/3 of Bengal's population. Why? Company extracted so much wealth that Bengal couldn't afford food during drought. This is the pattern for next 200 years. Extract wealth gives create crisis, gives extract more wealth. Now let's look at how Britain drained wealth. The mechanisms were sophisticated and devastating. Mechanism 1. The taxation system. British imposed crushing taxes. Land revenue, 50 to 80% of agricultural produce. Salt tax. Indians couldn't make or sell salt without British permission. Dozens of other taxes on goods. Trade, movement, compared to Mughal-era taxes, 15 to 20% of agricultural produce. British taxes were 3 to 4x higher, deliberately designed to extract maximum wealth. But here's the evil genius. Taxes had to be paid in cash. Previously, Indian farmers paid taxes in kind. Grain goods under British must pay cash. This forces farmers to sell crops immediately, can't wait for better prices, borrow from moneylenders, at high interest, fall into debt traps. Millions lose their land, become landless laborers. Mechanism 2. The home charges. This is where the real looting happened. India was forced to pay for. British soldiers stationed in India, British administrators, salaries, British officials, pensions paid. Even after returning to Britain, British wars fought outside India, interest on loans. Britain forced India to take. Example. India forced to pay for British troops fighting opium wars in China. Indians funded British imperialism elsewhere. Total home charges 1858 to 1947. £1 billion equivalent to $500 billion plus today. India wasn't paying for its own administration. India was funding the British Empire globally. Mechanism 3. Trade manipulation. British destroyed India's trade advantages. Indian textiles. 1,700. Indian cotton textiles dominate global markets. Britain imports massive amounts. 1700 to 1760. British government places huge tariffs on Indian textiles, 50 to 80%. To protect British manufacturers. Result: Indian textiles become too expensive in Britain and Europe. Meanwhile, British textiles imported to India with zero tariffs. 1813. Indian weavers destroyed. Handloom exports collapsed from £1.3 million to nearly zero. Millions of Indian weavers unemployed. Literal accounts of weavers cutting off their thumbs because they couldn't earn living. The trade deficit scam. Britain's trade with India should balance. India exports goods, Britain pays. But British invented a system where they never had to pay. Britain buys Indian goods, cotton, spices, silk, pays with money collected from Indian taxes, essentially buying Indian goods with India's own money, then shipping goods to Britain for free. It's like stealing your wallet, using your money to buy your TV, then telling you that you owe nothing because transaction was completed. Economist Dattav Bhai Naroji called this the drain of wealth. Britain taking Indian goods without paying equivalent value. Annual drain, £30 to £50 million by late 1800s. For 150 years. Mechanism for deindustrialization, 1750. India produces 25% of world's manufactured goods. 1900. India produces 2% of world's manufactured goods. This wasn't natural decline. This was deliberate destruction. British systematically destroyed Indian industries, textiles, tariffs, and direct destruction of looms. Britain wanted India as cotton supplier, not manufacturer. Steel. Indian steel making. Knowledge suppressed. Britain wanted to sell their steel to India. Shipbuilding, once dominated by India, deliberately destroyed. Britain wanted monopoly. The policy, India produces raw materials. Britain manufactures goods. India forced to buy British goods at high prices. Result, India transforms from manufacturer to raw material supplier. Classic colonial economy. The human cost was catastrophic. Let's look at famines. Because they weren't natural, they were created. Late Victorian Holocausts, 1876 to 1902. Between 1876 and 1902, India suffered a series of massive famines. Conservative estimates, 30+ million deaths. Historian Mike Davis calls these late Victorian Holocausts. Not natural disasters, political economic failures. The 1876 to 1878 famine. Drought hit southern and western India. Bad, but manageable. British response. Continue exporting food from famine-hit regions. 6.4 million tons of wheat exported during famine. Why? India must pay taxes and home charges regardless of famine. Exports generate revenue. Result: 5.5 million deaths. Viceroy Lord Lytton holds Grand Imperial Assemblage during famine. 68,000 attendees feast for a week, while millions starve. The 1943 Bengal famine, the worst, 3 million deaths. Bengal had sufficient food, but British exported food, diverted supplies to troops, and refused imports. Churchill's response when informed: why hasn't Gandhi died yet? Churchill blamed Indians for famine. They breed like rabbits. British priorities: war effort over Indian lives. Food exported, while Bengalis starved. The pattern: every major Indian famine under British rule followed same pattern. Food available but exported. British prioritize revenue over lives. Millions die. British deny or minimize deaths. Pre-British India had famines, but scale and frequency increased dramatically under British rule. Mughal-era famines. Rare. Government responded with aid, tax relief, public works. British-era famines, every 5 to 10 years. Government responded with continued exports and higher taxes. The life expectancy collapse. 1600. Indian life expectancy around 30 years, similar to Europe. 1947. Indian life expectancy 27 years. Europe's was 60+ life expectancy decreased under British rule. Unprecedented in colonial history. Let's look at specific examples of British theft. Real cases. Documented. Case 1. The Kohinoor Diamond, one of world's largest diamonds. Part of Mughal treasury. 1849. Britain conquers Punjab. Acquires Kohinoor. Acquires means stole. Forced 10-year-old Maharaja Dulip Singh to gift it to Queen Victoria. Value today: priceless, worth $1 to $5 billion conservatively. Still in British crown jewels. India requests return. Britain refuses. Case 2. Bengal Treasury, 1757. After Battle of Plassey, East India Company loots Bengal Treasury. Amount: £5 million, £1 billion plus in today's money. Clive of India Robert Clive personally takes £234,000, £50 million today. This single act of theft funds British expansion. Company uses stolen money to conquer more territory. Case 3. The railways. Britain claims railways were a gift to India. Reality: India paid for them. British built 40,000 miles of railway. using Indian taxes, borrowing from Britain, charging interest, employing British companies and workers. Indians paid for railways that primarily served British military and export needs. Passenger fares high. Freight rates structured to benefit British goods, hurt Indian goods. Railways enriched British investors, bankrupted Indian taxpayers. Case 4. The indigo plantations. British forced Indian farmers to grow indigo blue dye instead of food. System. British merchants gave farmers advances. Farmers had to grow indigo. Merchants bought at fixed low price. Farmers couldn't refuse. Bound by debt. Forced to grow non-food crop. 1860s. Indigo revolts. Farmers rebel against forced cultivation. British suppressed revolts. Continue assisted until synthetic dyes replace indigo. The total theft. Economist UTSA Patnaik's calculation. £45 trillion drained 1765 to 1938. Methodology. Calculate value of goods taken. Without payment plus interest compounded over time. Conservative estimate. Some scholars suggest even higher. For context, Britain's total GDP today is $3 trillion. India's is $3.7 trillion. Britain took 15x its current GDP from India. Over 200 years. So what did Britain do with stolen wealth? Built the modern world. Industrial Revolution. Britain's Industrial Revolution, funded by Indian wealth. Indian cotton provided raw material. Indian markets provided customers. Indian taxes provided capital. Textile mills in Manchester, built on Indian cotton, and Indian poverty. British Empire. Indian taxes funded British conquests elsewhere. Indian soldiers fought British wars in Afghanistan. China, Africa, Middle East, world wars. The sun never sets on British Empire because it was built on Indian wealth and Indian blood. Infrastructure. Victorian Britain's infrastructure, railways, ports, buildings funded substantially by Indian drain, while India got minimal infrastructure investment and paid for what little they got. Capital accumulation. British families, companies, and government accumulated enormous wealth from India. This capital advantage persists today. Britain's current wealth partially built on Indian loot. The denial. Modern Britain denies this history. Claims colonialism was civilizing mission. Prime ministers refuse to apologize. Argue colonialism wasn't that bad. Meanwhile, Britain refuses reparations. Refuses to even acknowledge the theft's scale. India's perspective. At independence, 1947, GDP per capita, $600 versus $12,000 in Britain. Life expectancy, 27 years. Literacy, 12%. 90% of population in absolute poverty. This wasn't the natural state of India. This was the result of 200 years of systematic extraction. India before British. Richest economy, advanced manufacturing, global trade leader. India after British. Impoverished, deindustrialized, dependent on food aid. The transformation wasn't development. It was deliberate destruction and extraction. So here's the truth about British colonialism in India. It was the greatest theft in history. $45 trillion extracted over 200 years. 27% of global GDP reduced to 3%. Richest economy transformed into poorest through taxation, trade manipulation, deindustrialization, and famine creation. The wealth built Britain, funded Industrial Revolution, created British Empire, built Victorian prosperity. While Indians died in famines, while craftsmen lost livelihoods, while living standards collapsed. This wasn't ancient history. This was 200 years ago. People alive today had grandparents who lived under this system, and Britain refuses to acknowledge it, refuses to apologize, refuses reparations. Instead, they claim they civilized India, built railways, established legal systems. But India paid for those railways, and had legal systems for millennia before Britain. What Britain gave India was poverty, famines, and deindustrialization. What they took was $45 trillion and counting. What do you think? Should Britain pay reparations? Should colonial history be taught honestly? Drop your thoughts. Because right now, Britain's wealth is built on Indian poverty. Their prosperity came from Indian exploitation. The Industrial Revolution, Indian funded the British Empire. Indian built Victorian England. Indian paid. Every major British institution from Parliament to universities to museums was funded partly by Indian wealth. The crown jewels contain Indian diamonds. The museums hold Indian artifacts. The economy was built on Indian labor, and India is still recovering. 200 years of extraction doesn't disappear in 75 years of independence. Britain drained India's wealth, built an empire, and now denies it happened. But the numbers don't lie. The history is documented. The theft is real. $45 trillion. That's the bill. And Britain still hasn't paid.